Hi, this is a quick presentation to introduce some of the geo-blocking technologies and implementations that you might come across. I'm not going to go into loads of detail here, but I just thought it'd be useful to, if you're having problems with geo-blocking, whether trying to implement it or, in my case, bypass it, that it might be interesting just to see some of the techniques in play. These geographic restrictions are becoming more and more part of our lives, and knowing how these systems work and the sort of real-world applications can help you bypass them. Okay, so let's have a look at the big one. The geo-blocking, the main technology used by far, and I'm talking about 90-odd% of solutions will use this now, is called IP geolocation. And really what it does is maps a user's IP address, so the IP address you're connected to the internet with, to a physical location. And it does this really just by looking it up in a sort of digital phone book. The IP address that you get assigned from your ISP or from the cafe you're sitting in or the library or hotel or airport or whatever is registered to somebody, and it's registered to a specific country. People in the US cannot register UK IP addresses to use in that country. They can register them as globally as a international country, but they've got to use them in the specific country. So it makes sense that this address is tied to a location. So real-world implementation, this is what usually causes a streaming service to say this content is not available in your region. E-commerce sites use it to give country-specific pricing. That is, an airline might charge $50 to somebody for a flight and $150 to somebody else for a flight, depending on their location of their IP address. And things like news sites and websites that give regional content specifically based on your location. So they either restrict it or change it or modify it. And they use your IP address, which is why we all use VPNs, because this is the simplest way to bypass IP geolocation on its own is to use a VPN. Unfortunately, there are other methods that people can use. DNS resolution and region binding are two other technologies that are used by some sites. DNS resolution basically has different regional-based DNS servers that give different IP addresses for the same domain. So you can go to Netflix and get two different locations at two different IP addresses based on where your location is. So Netflix will route US DNS users to US content, US Netflix servers. This is increasingly common. It's quite easy to bypass this though, because you do generally have control over your DNS servers you use. Certainly do with a VPN. Many devices now though hard code DNS servers, so streaming devices like, for instance, the Roku. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a little streaming device. You can set, looks like you can set a DNS server in the configuration settings, but they're actually hard coded, and the Roku will go and get send DNS requests to a hard coded server, and you can't alter that. Account region binding is very simple. Steam does this. Your user accounts are permanently tied to a specific country. So if you go and create your Steam account in Mexico, you will forever be classed as a Mexican user, that account. Now, they might use other technologies to detect where you are, but you'll basically have Mexican pricing or Mexican content, and it's very difficult to change this because it'll just lock game availability and things like that based on the region where your account was created. So when you move out of Mexico, your really cheap Steam game won't work in the USA, and vice versa. So this is quite a sneaky one, really. This is very difficult to get past, and again increasingly used. I'd say it's probably the second biggest beyond geolocation. This is financial and payment verification. Payment methods verification serves as it's a powerful secondary geo-blocking mechanism. So what will happen basically is you might go and use a VPN to sign up to Hulu, US Hulu. I think, great, I'm sorted, it's letting me go. But it will also verify your payment method. So if you're waving around a French credit card or European credit card or something like that, and it won't work because when you try and pay for your subscription, it will use that to block access to it. So your IP address may be French, look American, but by using a VPN, but your French credit card will give it away. There's a few little places around there, and I'm going to do some videos about this because it's quite a difficult method to get past. They will look at the country of your payment method. They will look at the billing address, so they'll check that the payment method's billing address matches a region they approve of, so where you live exactly. Hulu is the classic example. It only accepts US payment method, but lots of digital platforms do this, and they enforce regional pricing as well. So they vary the pricing based on where you're paying from. There are ways around this. There are various loopholes and workarounds, but they're a bit fiddly, and lots of people like using a VPN because you just push a button and you've basically hidden your location. But when it goes through the palaver of changing financial and getting separate credit cards, people just get fed up of it, and rightly so. Okay, quickly, I'm not going to go into much more detail here, but bypassing geo-blocking techniques is more difficult on mobile phones and mobile devices. This is because applications can detect SIM card information and mobile network details, which you have very little control over. They can use that to determine a user's location with very high accuracy. There are things like network MCC and MNC codes, which can identify both the country and the carrier. These are really difficult to spoof without physical SIM change, so you need a different SIM card to get past this. These are quite often used in mobile-only streaming services to make sure that the content is being directed only to specific areas. So again, although you can put a VPN service or an app onto your mobile phone, it might not be enough. There is also things like GPS and HTML5 locations. Apps and websites can request direct access to precise location data, which of course your phone has if it has GPS technology on it, which most do, through HTML5, geolocation API, or the GPS itself. This does require explicit user permission, so the app or the website or whatever will have to ask your permission to do this. It'll give very highly accurate location data. It's usually used in mobile applications with location-specific features, something like things like Strava and things like that, which need the GPS to work properly to know your location, and have to ask your permission, but they can also use it to, ironically, block you from the application as well. Browser and language detection, I won't go much into this. It's dead easy to bypass, and nobody really uses it that much. Browser settings and language preferences, which you can control and set in your browser, can be used. ITVX, the UK's biggest commercial channel, used this years ago, and basically if you had your configuration settings, they weren't set to the UK in your browser, it would block access. So you'd have your fancy VPN, you'd have your UK payment card, but if you had UK time zone set, US time zone set, it would block access. It was quite confusing. People don't use it as much anymore. I've not noticed it, but it's always worth checking if you have problems with your VPN. Check your browser and language detection settings on your computer. Okay, so basically key takeaways. Really, IP geolocation is the big daddy of this. Generally, if you use a VPN and hide your IP address, you can get past most geo blocks without any problem. The second biggest is payment verification and account region, so wherever your account is created. But of course, if you create your account while you're using a VPN, you can bypass that, because if you're in the US and you create and you connect to a UK VPN server and then create your BBC account, it will work perfectly. Mobile evolution, this is something we have to watch. How easy is it going to be able to pass geo-blocking in the future? Because there's so much information on our mobile devices, I'm not sure. Will VPN be enough? I suspect probably not in the long run. So, really layered approach is what people use now. Most effective geo-blocking implementations will usually implement both IP geolocation and payment verification is really the one that most use, and it's quite effective. Okay, so I'm going to go into these in more detail in more videos coming up, and hopefully this wasn't too boring, and somebody's got something out of it somewhere. Okay, thanks for listening, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye for now.